Hello everyone. It has been more than 7 months since the first case of COVID-19 was reported in India. After that, we all know what happened. The virus continued to spread from one person to another. Not only in India, but the whole world has been shaken by this coronavirus. It's just been a roller coaster ride for all of us in the last 7 months. And this is all because of a small virus. And when I mean small, I meant really small. So small than a single blood cell of any type. And we need an electron microscope to see it. Despite being so small, how a virus can create such a catastrophe? As an answer to that question, in this video, I'm going to talk about how the virus spreads in the human body. Let's jump in. Well, to know about how a virus spreads in our body, it's key to understand the role of DNA in our body. This is why I'm going to give you a brief explanation of how DNA works. What is a DNA? The full form of DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. It is simply a chain of molecules attached to each other in a spiral-like shape. This tiny molecular structure that's inside the nucleus of a cell ends up creating the whole living things like humans, animals and trees, etc. But how? Time for another term. Amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. They get attached to each other like Lego blocks in different ways to form proteins. But to form proteins, they must form some specific shapes. This is where the DNA comes in the picture. If we zoom in on the DNA structure, we can see the letters on it. These letters indicate a variety of chemicals. But the problem with DNA is that it's so long that it can't come out of the nucleus of the cell. So, the RNA takes charge of helping DNA. What RNA does is copy one side of the DNA code. As RNA is smaller in length, it can pass through the pores of nucleus and enters into another particle, ribosome, which is a protein-making machine. The ribosome scans the code in RNA and attaches the amino acids according to the code. Every 3 letters of the RNA code tell the ribosomes which of the 20 amino acids should be added next. For example, CAA means glutamine, AGU means serine. And the process goes on like this. Amino acids build up into proteins. Proteins form into cells, and cells form into organs. And you know what happens after that, obviously. Organs are combined to form into human body. As a matter of fact, humans have up to 99.99% of similar DNA, and the difference is only in the remaining 0.01%. This mere difference occurs due to a process called genetic recombination, which is a topic for another day. I hope you got a brief idea of how our DNA works. Let's get into the main topic, virus. Usually, when the virus enters our body, the first part of the body to which it is attached is our cells. Viruses are very specific to the type of cells they attack. They choose cells because they cannot reproduce without the help of other organisms called hosts. As our cells have all the features to meet the requirement of viruses, they are chosen to reproduce as hosts. Like us, viruses also contain genetic material in the form of DNA or RNA. This genetic material is injected into the cell when it is attached to the cells in our body. Unfortunately, not all cells are capable of identifying the DNA or RNA of viruses. There are 2 processes in which the replication of virus happens. The first one is the lytic cycle. During this cycle, the host cell takes the injected genetic material and begins to reproduce more viruses. Why? I hope you remember that the DNA code is a blueprint for the cells to function and reproduce. So in this case, the DNA of virus instructs the host cells to produce more viruses. After some time, the number of viruses increases so much that they break the cell wall and come out of it, resulting in the destruction of that cell. Then they search for another cell to be the host and to reproduce more and more. The second cycle is a lysogenic cycle. In this cycle, the virus enters the cell and injects genetic material into the cell. But this time, the virus's genetic material secretly mixes up and alters some part of the cell's genetic material. Following the instructions in the altered genetic material, the cell starts producing more cells with the same altered genetic material. Everything looks normal until the virus gets triggered into lactic cycle from the lysogenic cycle. Because once the virus moves from lysogenic cycle to the lactic cycle, all the cells with the mixed DNA begin to reproduce the viruses at once. It's like an all-out attack on our immune system, and it tends to have a strong impact. The reason for the shift from lysogenic to lactic cycle is maybe due to starvation or exposure to toxic chemicals. This is how viruses spread in the human body. Not all viruses are so dangerous though. Take the cold, which is also caused by viruses. Although it spreads in our body, it can be suppressed by our immune system. However, in the case of some deadly viruses such as HIV, the virus directly attaches to the helper T cells, which are the important components of our immune system. As the viruses hit the main immune system officer, our immune system begins to weaken and at the same time lose the ability to repair itself, making the situation more vulnerable. Also, the coronavirus, like Ebola, influenza virus and Zika, is also said to have its genetic material in the form of RNA and is smaller in size, which makes it capable of replicating fastly than DNA viruses and mess up the immune system. Now, we've also made a very simple video on how our immune system works. Click on the I button on the top to watch it. Coming back to the virus, they also have an ability to mutate, which means that they change their genetic structure slightly. In the most cases, a drug or a vaccine that is effective for the virus may not work on the mutated form. One factor that relieves us is that despite being an RNA virus, coronavirus mutates slowly than many other RNA viruses. Ultimately, the saying, prevention is the best cure, is solidified in the case of viruses. So my friends, whenever possible, wash your hands with soap and water. If you are traveling, make sure you have a hand sanitizer containing more than 70% ethanol or isopropanol with you and use it frequently. And finally, put on mask. That's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to know about various complicated topics delivered in a simple way. Support us by giving thumbs up. Your feedback really helps us a lot. So don't miss out on commenting on the video. Thank you. We will meet in our next video. Until then, cheers.